how would I launder a load of money like legally and or safely and not get caught.
For your writing process, are you morning or evening?
Morning.
Morning. Do you use a quiet room or background noise?
Quiet room, but I have I have like ambient noise in my headphones.
Yeah, I do that too. You need to have something there. For your first draft, is it messy or is it structured?
It's normally pretty structured, but it does often always really changes quite a lot from first draft to last. So it normally looks quite together until my editors, had a go at it, and then it changes.
Yeah. Is there a current or recent book that you've read and enjoyed?
What did I read? I just read on holiday. I read a few books. I read The Death of Us by Abigail Dean. That's really, really good. And it's up for loads of the big crime fiction awards this year. I think it's her third book. She had Girl A about 3 or 4 years ago. Then she had another one, and this one is the third one. So that was really good. I really, really enjoyed a book called How to Survive in the Woods by Pat Rosenfield.
Oh.
That was really fun. That was kind of it's mostly about this kind of hike in the middle of the American wilderness, and sort of bad things that happen on it, and that was very good. And the new one by Ruth Mancini was very good. I thought it's only come out I think last month, called The Stranger on the Stairs, so that was also really good.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. I'll definitely have to add them to my TBR because they sound really good.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part of writing a thriller?
First draft. Yeah, first draft before anybody else has kind of messed with it and told me all the bits that are wrong, and all the bits that have to change. So yeah, that's my sort of I mean, I enjoy all of it, most of it, but the first draft is kind of, it feels like it's the stage when you think it's kind of no one else has seen it and you feel like it's kind of is perfect, even though it isn't perfect, because you have to make lots of changes. But yeah, that's the bit I kind of probably enjoy the most. And it probably takes about half my year, about the first half of the year, to do that. So I spend a lot of time doing it, which is good.
It must be hard to change it. Like once you assume you send it to your editor and they come back, it must be so hard to change something you've worked, so hard on.
Yeah, but it does happen. It sort of happens every time, and every time I think maybe this time there'll be, it'll be like hardly anything to change, but actually every single time, really, to different extents. So I've had 10. This is my 10th book weekend, and there's different amounts with each one that they kind of, want to work on. But there's always a fair bit. There's always quite a few weeks of work, and I'm just waiting right now, actually, this week or next week for that email to land from my editor. So I'm in that space at the moment between sort of submitting the book and then waiting for all of the kind of commentary to come back. So that'll be soon.
Oh, that's exciting. Is there a book that you wish that you'd written? Is there any that you've read before and you went, I wish I wrote that?
Harry Potter.
That makes sense. It's just perfect timing because I have Harry Potter nails.
Oh wow, okay, blimey. Now my daughter made me do the test, and I think she said I'm in Ravenclaw, I think, and I think my wife was in Slytherin, but yeah, I don't know what that says about her. But anyway, probably something like Silence of the Lambs, I think, because that's the sort of one. It was such a kind of almost a turning point, I think, for lots of, at the point when it came out. There's the idea of the FBI behavioral unit and all that stuff, and serial killers, and Hannibal Lecter is he's like one of the iconic characters, over the last 50 years of crime fiction. So probably Silence of the Lambs, or I don't know, one maybe or Harry Potter. Yeah, so I'll go with one of those two.
Two very different books, but both brilliant. Do you have a favorite of your own novels? I know you're not meant. That's probably like your children. You're not meant to have a favorite, but everyone does.
Yeah. I mean, it varies from day to day, right? With your kids, so depending on what they've done. But I mean, quite often it's the one that I've just spent time with. So it can be like, the one I've spent the most spent the most time inside my head, sort of thing. So um most recently it's been the weekend, and then next year's book, The Family, which I've just written the first draft of. So but they're all kind of like have different things about them which make, they're kind of have different things about them which make them special. So The Holiday was the first book that got into the top 10, and it was the first one that had a TV version made out of it. But then Lies was my debut, and that was the kind of the one that got me kind of started. But then I loved The Dream Home, because that was a couple of years ago, because I was writing it it's about a moving house, and I was kind of moving house myself while I was writing it, and so that really kind of resonated with me. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're all. I don't really have single favorite. I suppose that I probably like different parts about all of them. They're all special. Just like your kids, they're all my favorite, sort of thing. So yeah, I've only got 2 kids, by the way, so it's not like a big competition. But yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, please don't choose between your kids. I just meant the books.
Yeah.
What's the strangest place that you've had a story idea, like where you've just been sitting and something's popped in your head?
I mean, I sort of hope you sort of waiting for ideas to pop like at any time, really. So I don't know. I mean, the place I get a lot of ideas is when I'm doing a boring task like washing up or something like that, and got some music on. So it's often something really mundane, or on a bus or on a train. I mean, it used to be that when I had a full-time job, I worked for a long time. I was a journalist, and I worked at a uni here in Nottingham, and quite often it would be in if I was stuck in like a really boring meeting or something, and my mind was wandering, and then that would be when things would sometimes pop into my head, and then other times it can be the idea of the end of the weekend, the very end of the weekend, how it's sort of the final page works out. It kind of came to me when I was on a short run. I'd go a little 5K run around my house every twice a week or something around my neighborhood, and it was on that run that I kind of had the idea for the sort of final twist of that book. So it tends to be when you're not expecting it. It tends to be when you're kind of not thinking about it, and not that something will just 2 things will connect, or you'll hear something. So yeah, it can be anytime, really, but it doesn't tend to be when I'm sitting at my desk desperately trying to think of an idea. It's normally comes out of the blue. So yeah.
Well, that must be a good way to do it, because your books are brilliant. So the boring meetings and the train journeys have worked out. So how do you prefer to read your books? Are you a physical book person, a Kindle, an audiobook, a mix of all 3?
I'm normally a physical book person. I normally like paperbacks. That's my sort of probably my number one in terms of how many of the books we've got in the house and in the cabin here behind me. They're 95% paperbacks. I have got a Kindle. I do read on a Kindle, and we were on holiday recently, on a lot of trains, doing a lot of train journeys around Europe, and I had the Kindle then, because it's obviously a lot more convenient, and it was read a few books. And so I do like the Kindle, and I do, because also you can get quite a lot of advanced copies I get will be on Kindle, and review copies and that sort of thing. So I also listen to a lot of audiobooks. So I've just listened to the audio of a book called The Four by Ellie Keel, which is really good, quite dark, set in a really, really top end kind of boarding school. My wife recommended it, and I said to her the other night, I said, that was, blimey, that was very dark, that book you recommended. But she was quite pleased with her. But that was good. But I would have an audiobook on go all the time as well. So but paperback is my kind of number one sort of format of choice, I think.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like actually like holding a physical book. Like, I love an audiobook and I love my Kindle for the convenience, but yeah, the only good thing there is for the Kindle is the fact that I don't have to lug like loads of books about. So
Okay. There's some books I read when I want to sort of. I read one on holiday, which was a sci-fi book, and I was certain times I wanted to flick back and just check things and have a look at what was happening before and who was who and that sort of stuff. And it's just, I find I'm not very good at doing that on the Kindle. So I don't know, with the paperback, I feel like there's you can do that more easily. So it's that's another plus point for the old school books, I think.
Especially if it's like a fantasy and it has a map or like some really complicated names. If I can't flick back, I will not know who's who.
Yeah.
Well, that's our quick fire questions done. So
Okay.
just on to some general questions now. And then some people are putting some questions in. So thank yous. I promise I will get to them. I'm not forgetting about you.
Okay.
So does your background in kind of journalism, does it impact the way that you write?
I think it does. I think so. So I was a journalist originally. I was a reporter on my local paper here in Nottingham for 5 years, and then I went to work in London for a national paper down there. And I think it does, because I think it's always drummed into you that you can't really waste words, and you can't waste time. You can't waste the reader's time. And it was always, when I was training, it was always sort of drummed into me that if you write something and you're not grabbing someone straight away, then that's, they're going to move on to the next thing. They're going to turn the page. And also, if you write a piece, whatever it is, and halfway through someone's like doesn't understand what it's about, or what's going on, or what the meaning of the story is, that's not their fault. That's your fault as the writer. That's your fault for not working hard enough to make it clear. And so I've always kind of sort of carried that, I think, into writing, and I'm always sort of conscious of trying to make the reading experience as kind of enjoyable as possible. And because I get, sometimes I read books and I get a bit lost as to, who's who and who's saying what and which character's which and that sort of stuff. So I'm always trying to think of it from the reader's perspective, which is definitely something sort of drummed into you in journalism. And so, I thought I'll sort of carry that with me now. And also the expectation that your work's going to get edited, because it always does. Every single day it gets, improved, altered, messed about with by the sub editors. So it's a normal part of the process, and as it is in writing books, that's kind of a normal. I think there are a few authors out there who have been around for a long time who kind of don't need their work to be edited, but I think they're probably quite few and far between. And sometimes you read books by people who are well established, and you think this book, should have been edited and wasn't, probably, or naming no names, but I think it normally benefits the process. Yeah.
So did you decide that you wanted to be an author before you went into journalism, or was it during that process, or was it like a lot earlier?
Well, I thought I had a really vague idea when I was a teenager of writing a book, but I never thought I'd actually told anybody until I was much older. But then I actually my aunt came to visit last week, and she lives in Germany, and she told me something that apparently I'd been there when I was 21, gone to visit her, gone to do some work in Germany, and she told me that when she asked me at that age, it was early 90s, she said to me, "What do you actually want to do for a job?" And I told her straight face, "Well, I'm going to write books." And she just kind of went, "Oh God," like this, because it's obviously not very. And I've completely forgotten that conversation. I'd completely forgotten it, but obviously I was telling people at that age that I was going to try and do it. But obviously it took me. It was a long time after that before the first one actually got published. So, but it was always kind of in my head. And the idea of writing for a living, led me into journalism, and then led me into working. So I was a press officer for the University of Nottingham, which involves lots of writing and sort of different kind of writing, but it's similar. So, but it was always a kind of vague notion in my head, and it wasn't until I wasn't published till I was 46. So it took me quite a long time to get there, but I think it does for most people.
Yeah, she must be so proud that you're now like a published author, though, and that she can remember that conversation.
Well, I mean, I honestly could, because I don't see her very often, and she just kind of, I don't know what even prompted her to mention it. I think I gave her a copy of the new paperback because I had someone just arrived, and dedicated it to her and her husband. So it's very nice to see the sort of 10 books, and it's still a bit of you sometimes have a bit of a pinch me sort of moment when you don't quite believe. It's still a bit weird. Like I was in a shop yesterday, and the I don't know how it even came up. I was buying a suit for a wedding we're going to, and the bloke asked me what I did for a living, and I still feel a bit weird sometimes saying I'm an author, because it sounds a bit like, you know, it sounds a bit made up, doesn't it? Really, but yeah, but it takes a few years for you to sort of get over the idea of telling people that and keeping a straight face, sort of thing. But yeah, it's nice to see all the books on the shelf for sure.
Oh, definitely. Like you must be so excited if you walk into like Waterstones or something and you can see your books.
Yeah, I was in there yesterday in Nottingham signing, grabbing the ones they've got and signing the new paperbacks. So yeah, I was. I just they know me most of the time now. They know when I come in, I'm going to be like, either saying, "Can I sign these?" or saying, "Why haven't you got any of my books?" So yeah, they know, they know I'm normally trouble, but yeah, it's good. It's fun.
Do you ever get like recognized like in public or like when you're in stores?
Occasionally, I mean, trying to think. It happened on the bus like one time a few months ago when I was getting the bus into Nottingham, and I got off at the station, and someone asked me then. I mean, yeah, I mean once in a while, not very often, but I mean, when I'll go to Harrogate Book Festival next week, and then obviously that happens more often there, but because everybody sort of crime fiction there, and it's kind of everybody mixing in, but yeah, I mean, it does happen. I think it happened at the train station as well one time, but it's pretty rare. I mean, sometimes I get mistaken for Philip Schofield, but that's not so much anymore, because he's obviously not really in the public eye anymore. So
I know it must feel so surreal like to get recognized because obviously like authors, unless you're a fan, you usually don't know what they look like. But yeah, it must feel so weird if someone comes up to you and you're like, "Oh my God, you're TM Logan." Must be
yeah,
so strange.
I mean, I guess probably, I don't know, 20 years ago, when you could probably read 10 books by someone and still maybe not know. I don't know, unless the cover picture was in the jacket or something. But obviously, there's no social media, there's none of that stuff. So it's probably, whereas now we're all kind of, not all of us, but we're mostly sort of out there, and kind of you're much more visible, I think, now than probably we ever were before. So yeah, but it's no, it's funny. It's kind of it is funny, because sometimes people see people sort of looking at you sideways like this on at a bus stop or something, and you kind of think, wonder what they're thinking. But yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
So for your books, where do you get your inspiration from? Is it from, kind of like the experiences you had as a journalist, or is it just completely random?
Yeah, I mean, it can be different things. So The Dream Home was my book from a couple of years ago. That was about a house move, and inspired by some friends of ours who moved house and found a room in their house that was not on the plans, and was actually there to knock through this wall and found this hidden room behind it with a load of valuable stuff in it. And they still to this day don't know who it belonged to. They haven't done anything with it because they're like, we don't want to sell it or whatever. Um, so I just wrote that down at the time and thought that's quite a weird little thing there. And out of that, some years later, the Dream Home kind of was inspired by. So it can be that, or it can be, the daughter last year is a story about a woman who goes to pick up a child from uni and finds that they're not there. So, and that again was just one of those, like you asked earlier about the ideas. I was driving down the motorway to pick my daughter Sophie up in Cardiff, and that idea just popped into my head. Like, what do I do actually? What's the procedure if she's not in a room and her phone's off and she's dropped out? Who would anybody help me? Would the university help me? Would the police help me? How, she's 18, she can do whatever she likes. So, but that, yeah, just a random, and I think everybody has these random thoughts, but someone like me, I will always kind of make a little note of it. And I think that's sometimes the only difference, I think, between letting it float by and then you forget about it, or writing it down and then thinking about it, a few weeks or months or years later. And that's what authors do. That's what I do. So it can be any of that stuff, or it could be a TV show or a news story I've seen. So it's a real mix of little things that occur to me. And yeah, you kind of, I think ideas are weird there, because ideas are sort of all around us, but it's a case of like being able to tune in to them and listen to them and see them when they arrive. So yeah, it's always something a bit different.
Yeah. I only finished The Daughter this morning, and I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but my jaw was on the floor. I was, I did, I usually think I'm one of those people that can guess what's going to happen. I did not guess. I was so far off.
Excellent. Good. Well, I'm glad you were surprised.
Yeah, I think it became my new favourite. Lies was my favourite, but that
Okay.
is knocked off top spot so
Wow.
far.
All
I've
right.
not read The Dream Home yet, so that might be for my train journey tomorrow.
Yeah.
So how much of a book do you have planned before you start writing? Do you like kind of know where it's going to go, or just see what happens?
I've done it kind of different ways. And I've never really, I don't think I've ever really done it the same way from one book to the next. Sometimes I'll plan, have a few pages of random notes and some of the key sort of turning points along the way. Sometimes I'll try and do a lot more than that. And for the book I've just written, I wrote a sort of 8-page synopsis, and then I changed it all after I'd done that. And then I only used the first half of it anyway, and then changed the second half. So for me, I think I can't plan it all from start to finish, but I want to know where I'm going to start, have an idea of where I probably want to finish up, and some of those key turning points along the way. Because I think some of it has to, for me, some of it has to be organic. Some of it has to happen while you're writing, and once you get to know the characters and you get inside their heads, and you kind of have more of an idea of what they would do and what they wouldn't do as well. So yeah, I prefer to have a reasonable idea of where I'm going, but I can't plan it all, because it just doesn't, for me, it doesn't really work. I know there are authors out there. I think Jeffrey Deaver I think he does like a 30 or 40 page like outline, which is for a book, and it's like every chapter has got a paragraph or whatever, and so he's absolutely sort of nails it as he goes along. But for me, I can't do it to that level, partly because I haven't really got time to do that level of planning. But yeah, I like to sort of have a bit of a mix of both. So I'm not. There are also people who just completely make it up every single day and go from seat of the pants type people, and I think Lisa Jewell is one of them, and she's brilliant. So I think it's just whatever works for you, because people at school, people study in different ways, and people revise for exams in different ways. People work in different ways. So I think it's not a surprise that the books get written in different ways. I think it's just that's probably it's probably as it should be.
Yeah. And once your books are published, do you like read them through again, or are you kind of like a final draft and you're done?
Thing is, because I've done, so I'll normally do a first draft, and there'll be 3 edits, at least 3, at which point you're either working through it again, rewriting, and sort of reading it all again. Then there'll be a sort of proofing stage when you read it again. Then there'll be a kind of final stage when you read it again. By that point, you're kind of you don't hate it, but you kind of like, I've done this. I've read this enough times now, so I've actually never sat down and read one of them from start to finish. I probably should, but I have so many books on my TBR pile that I kind of feel like I don't want to miss out on one of them by reading something I've already read. So no, I haven't actually done that. I probably should.
It would be quite weird to read from start to finish, and I can imagine, like, you've spent so much of your life on it, you've probably know it inside and out. So once it's published, it must just be like, here you go.
I'd probably spot like mistakes and stuff in it, and there are a couple of little weird little things that do get through all the stages. So yeah, I'd probably spot them and then be like, but because I do get emails from people as well saying, do you realize on page 273 there was this happened, and it was this car was never made as a convertible, or like, so yeah, the stuff does creep through all the stages, but it's fine.
I can't say I'm that observant when I read a book. I've never thought about that. I'm going to look out the next time I read one of your books.
You'd be surprised at the stuff that people pick up, and then yeah, sometimes they're quite irate. The emails, sort of people saying, I think I wrote in one of the books, what was it? If it's, a lot of people will know this straight away, but I said something like, it was sort of biblical reference about who betrayed Jesus, and I think I put something like, did I say Judas? Wasn't Judas betrayed? But something like, anyway, it's Peter instead of Judas, or the other way around or something. And someone sent me a very, very irate email saying that I should have known this, and this is outrageous that I didn't know my Bible well enough to. So I'm like, but yeah, it went through like an editor and load of proofreaders, and none of them spotted it either. So but yeah, it's out there now. So
Doesn't matter, it's fine. It's published, people like it.
yeah.
When you're writing, is it hard to kind of like keep track of like the plot twists and the clues that you're trying to leave for people? Like, do you ever get confused?
Yeah, and there's quite often there's things that I will put in, and then as kind of either as sort of foreshadowing or red herrings or sort of threads to be picked up that I then forget about, and then but all that stuff mostly is picked up in that first big edit. 'Cause my editor will say, that character that walked in on chapter 4 and said this, what happened to him? Because he never appears again, and you're like, oh no, I've kind of forgotten about him. But so yeah, you do. It's normally tidied up in that first or second edit. So it's because it can be quite hard to keep all those balls in the air at the same time and keep track of literally everything. So, but as long as they're in there, then it can be, as long as it's the idea is in there or the person's in there or the scene, then you can either get rid of it or you can use it. But it's quite often because I know it'll get picked up by my editor. I know she'll challenge me on it and say you haven't done anything with this, so I can either chop it out or expand on it as is needed. So because there's always stuff that comes in for the second draft and some things that are taken out. So yeah, there's always kind of some movement in that first big edit, which is why I'm looking forward to it so much for book 11. Yeah.
I was thinking that for when I was reading The Holiday, I was like, you must have got so confused with the multiple point of views, and I would have lost track. Like, I don't know how you done it.
A few days with that book, I remember them because I didn't have a cabin at the time. I was writing in the spare room of my old house, and I think it was a Monday morning, and I think I was just kind of spent about half an hour just with my head in my hands, just staring at my chapter plan on the desk, trying to figure it out. And yeah, it was because I will normally do, or I started doing with the first book. Once I've written a first draft, I'll do another document, which is like one line per chapter. So one line for each chapter. So it gives you about 3.5 page document, and then you can sort of see everything in one place, and then that helps me to kind of figure out what goes where and who's space things out and all that stuff. So, but yeah, it's difficult with them when you got multiple points of view and multiple strands and storylines and things. It can be tricky to kind of keep track of it, but I'll get there in the end, I think, with The Holiday. So yeah.
Is it the books that have like multiple point of views? Are they the ones that are more challenging to finish, or
I think the thing is with that, they're good it's good in a way from the reader's point of view and the writer, I think, because it's having the bit of a fresh view every so often helps. I think it is a challenge, but I think it can also be a challenge if you've got a single point of view all the way through to kind of keep the focus and keep the attention going and keep the engagement going, because having one, obviously Lies has only got one point of view, and partly because it was my first book and I was just kind of wanted to do it as simply as I possibly could. Sorry, my first published book. But yeah, I think it's like that can be a challenge as well in itself, because you are literally seeing the whole story through one person's eyes. You've got no other kind of input to the story, so that is also it has its own challenges for sure to make it kind of it's attractive from a writing point of view, because it's quite simple approach, but it also, like I say, has kind of has its own challenges.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So I've read 5 out of 10 of your books so far, so I haven't quite got through all of them yet because I needed some to save for the train for this weekend.
Okay.
But have you ever thought about writing like a sequel to any of your books?
Yeah, I did. There are a couple that, I guess in theory you could have a sequel to The Weekend, or you could have a sequel to the holiday. I did think about a sequel to The Holiday a few years ago. It was actually on holiday with my family, and we were talking about it. The kids were talking to me about it, and they had various ideas as to what I could do. I suppose I've never really seriously thought about a sequel. Maybe it'll be a novella. I don't know. Maybe it'll be something like that, or a bit of extra kind of, because it's quite interesting to think about what they would do next. Because obviously, at the end of The Holiday, without giving any spoilers away, all the people who start that book do not all of them don't make it through to the end. So it's kind of, it will be a different, a different kind of a different story, but it would be. I mean, it is intriguing to think about, and think about if you've got any characters that could carry through. And I have this question also comes to me. So some of my books, a couple of them are made into TV shows, and a few other ones at the moment are kind of in the mix, have been optioned, and the TV companies are looking at them. And one of the questions they ask, or I have been asked, for example, with The Daughter, which is currently being there's scripts and stuff flying around. They said to me, well, what would be season 2 of this? Because that is a thing that they ask. Because it's like, if they obviously with a TV show, if it does well, then they want to be able to follow that up with the season 2 and exploit that kind of success. So it does make you think about where you could go with it, with a story like that, and I guess in theory you could do that with The Daughter as well. But yeah, I suppose I haven't really seriously thought about it, because I've kind of got into the groove now of standalones, and I'll probably be doing that for, I don't know, the next few books at least.
Yeah, that was exactly my thoughts. Like when I finished The Weekend and The Holiday, because again, without spoilers, there's not a definitive ending, we'll say. Not exactly a cliffhanger, but it is open to interpretation. So
Yeah.
my thoughts, I was like, is there going to be another one? Or do you want people to kind of think about it themselves, of like where the characters are going to be going, or is it left open for possible sequels?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I just for The Weekend, I just liked the idea of. I don't really like unresolved endings myself. So, but I felt like it was fairly. I felt like it was fairly clear what was probably going to happen, but because I wrote that originally in that way as just a kind of placeholder, because I thought I had the idea. This is how I wanted to get. I'll have a placeholder, and I thought at the time, well, I'll change that before I finish the draft. Because I want to have a bit more to it. And then I didn't do that, and then I sent it to my editor and my agent, and I said, actually, I thought I'd elaborate a bit on the ending, and they're like, no, do you just leave it as it is, because we both, think it really works really well. So, yeah, we left it as it was in the end, but there's an element of interpretation as to what you think might actually happen next, without any spoilers. Because I've had questions that I've done a few live events where somebody's put their hand up at the end and asked a question, not in the way you asked it. You asked it in a very kind of thoughtful way, but there's it's a way of asking that question in a way that basically gives away the ending. So yeah, so I've had that as well, which is always a bit of and I'm sort of saying to them, you're not going to do a spoiler, are you? And then they do a spoiler, and you're like, oh, so yeah, but it's fine.
I'm trying so hard not to.
Yep. It's perfect. It's fine.
So I apologize in advance if it does happen. I did really try. I've made it about 40 minutes or so we'll see if I make it through.
Yeah, it's fine.
So obviously, like with the content of your books, like there obviously is like some kind of darker themes. Do you have like people that you contact, like in the police or researchers, or do you have to make like some really awkward Google searches to kind of get your research?
Bit of both, really. I mean, I didn't realize until with this last book, when I was doing some Google searches, and Google like sort of told me off. Like, well, it didn't tell me off, but it said I was Googling how you. I wanted to know like how if you injected someone with insulin or air, how it would kill them. And I asked this question to Google, and it basically came back and said, I can't do that because it might be assisting you in a crime or something. I'm like, what? So it wouldn't tell me. It wouldn't give me any. But there's other ways of finding it out. But so yeah, there is an element of that. But there's also I've got some sort of friends in contacts. I've got a couple who are sort of, one's a GP and one's a doctor, and there's a couple of them who are in the legal profession, and there was a police officer that I consulted as well on certain things. So yeah, it helps. And then with the weekend, is obviously the book really revolves around what do you do with a load of cash. And so I had another friend of my wife's who was an accountant, and I was asking her, you know, to her, I think to her initial sort of alarm really about how would I launder a load of money like legally and or safely and not get caught. And so she's quite sort of, she's quite straight down the line sort of person. So I had to make it clear that it was all just for fiction. But yeah, I have a few people I can ask for things like that. And then so you take that, and I wouldn't say I always go completely like rigidly with the sort of factual stuff. I mean, I think is a little bit of license, sometimes in that sort of thing. And also with locations, you can have a little bit of license as well, I think, to whatever benefits the story and the pace and the tension. I will always kind of, tweak things here and there.
So, like, I seen obviously like on Instagram that you've not released your new book, but you've put it out there that it's coming, like early 2027.
Yeah.
How long does it take you to actually, like write a book from start to finish?
It's normally about 4.5, 5 months. So I'd normally like to start in January and send it to my editor first week of June. So this one, the one I just done, was a bit truncated because I didn't really start it until March. So it was a lot much shorter kind of process. But for me, for most of the books, and for what I prefer, is normally about 4.5. It's about 16 to 18 weeks, something like that. Because then I kind of count back, how much do I need to write a week to make this deadline? So I can do about 6,000 words a week for 16 weeks or something. And then you have a week off for launch day and that sort of thing. So it's normally the first half of my year pretty much taken up with that. I'll be doing a first draft. New book will come out in end of February, early March, and then I'll submit the beginning of June. And then second half of the year is, all the edits around it, and that will probably take me from July until maybe, I don't know when it'll be fully finally signed off, probably October. And yeah, so it's kind of, that's the way my year kind of breaks down. But the first draft is really, 4 to 5 months. But some people are a lot quicker than that. And I did an event with, I don't know if any of you read any books by Kim Slater, KL Slater. She lives quite near me in Nottinghamshire, and I think our first books came out the same year. But she's got like twice as many as I have. She's got a 20 plus, I think. So because she's, she just writes quicker. And MJ Arledge, also a very fast writer. Will Dean, very, very quick. He writes a whole book in a month and then spends like 3 or 4 months editing it. So, he's out there in the woods in Sweden, kind of. He's got no distractions, I think. So yeah, but I'm not that quick, to be honest. I'm not very quick at writing, and I enjoy it more if I can take my time.
Yeah, it's like we said earlier, everyone has different processes. I can't imagine writing a book in general. I don't have the capability to do that. Yeah, a month is crazy. That's very quick.
Yeah, I think that's probably an extreme example, but I think there's certainly people, I think, like MJ Arledge, he'll do like 4,000 words a day or something. And so you don't need too many days like that you need probably 20 or 30 days like that, and you're looking at kind of full length novels. So yeah, but that's well beyond my capabilities. Unless I have loads and loads and loads of coffee.
Yeah, you would need it. So are there any like characters in your books that are based off of like people that you know in real life, or some traits, or are they all just completely like fiction?
There's a few minor characters in some of the books for whom have used real people for. So in A Curfew, there's a police officer called Paul Harmer, who's my mate Paul, who lives not far away. But it tends to be minor characters, so he doesn't appear very often. He's just kind of there and then he's gone. Because I find it, if they're a main character, it's quite distracting. So I've never had a character, for example, called Sally. a main character. Because my wife's called Sally, and if I had a character called Sally, I'd just be thinking about her the whole time. So that would not really, you know. For other characters, sometimes I have used I've used character traits for other people in certain characters, and in my second book, 29 Seconds, there's a really, really, really obnoxious academic in it. He was kind of the main antagonist, and he has traits of certain people that I knew and worked with at the university. And I mean, people like him probably exist in kind of every workplace. So it's not saying it's just a university thing, but it's so occasionally I'll bring in traits from people that I know, or little ticks or characteristics or turns of phrase, that sort of thing. So that's quite a fun part of the process, really.
It must be so fun, like for your family and friends to read it because they'll notice it straight away. I can imagine.
Yeah, and my kids are always, certainly for the most of the first few books, they were in every book, and one way or another. Apart from the first one, which just had Lies, just had had the little boy in it. It was kind of based on my son, and my daughter was a bit put out that she wasn't in it at all, and then but she was in the original book before that, which wasn't published. So it's kind of she had her own book, and then they appeared together in the second book, and in The Holiday they were kind of in there because it's brother and sister, and then again in The Catch there's a brother and sister, but the brother, the little boy, has died sort of tragically very young in the book, and my daughter read that when she first read it in The Catch and said, hard luck, Tom, you're actually dead in this one, so hard luck for you. But no, I mean, it's all fiction, so it's yeah. But they tend to look. So I like to read them and sort of see whether they're in them normally. So yeah.
Because of the kind of books that you write, have you become like more suspicious of people, like just in your regular life? Because obviously a lot of your books, it's about like betrayal, secrets, lies. Like, are you ever kind of like iffy about people now?
I think I probably always was. I think, yeah. I mean, I think I'm normally quite an optimistic person, quite a trusting person, but then I do sometimes get, yeah, because part of the job that I do is always thinking, what's the worst what's the worst thing that could happen here? What's the worst? So, with The Holiday, that's basically inspired by my wife going on holiday with her three mates. She did every year for long weekends, whatever. And I was just thinking one time, they're so close and they're so good friends. What would be the thing that could actually fracture that group? What would be how bad would it have to be for that group to break apart? And that was, I wrote that book in 2018. So it's obviously, there's always been something a bit twisted in my head, I think, a bit sort of. So, but I think that's as thriller writers and crime writers for it. I think that, that you just kind of get all your anxieties and worries and sort of, that on the page. And when I was writing The Daughter, that came out last year, and I was writing it the year before that, that was in the run up to my daughter Sophie going to Australia for 6 months. So, you're really kind of, she was getting ready to go away to the other side of the world. It was actually longer than 6 months in the end. But so you're kind of putting all of those anxieties about, a daughter going missing and stuff kind of on the page because you're thinking about it. And same with The Dream Home. I was moving house when I wrote The Dream Home, and it's kind of all of those sort of being uprooted and dislocation kind of fears that you put on the page. So, and then I get to share all my fears with all of you. So that's, that's how you benefit from all my anxieties and kind of weirdness.
I think that's probably the reason your books are so popular, is because they are completely unbelievable. They make you think what you would possibly do in that situation, like moving house, like if your daughter went missing. Because when I finished reading The Weekend, I was actually sitting there questioning my boyfriend. I was like, what would you do if we found like this big bag full of cash? Like, would we keep it? Would we take it back? Because it's real questions. What would you do?
What did he say?
He said he'd keep it.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Police officers in the chat, or is this?
Well, I'd done criminology at university, so I was looking at him and I was like, kidding, we would not be keeping this suspicious bag of cash. And he was like, we could go on holiday. I was like, no.
He'd probably say, look, I'll take care of it for you. I'll take it to the police for you. And then he'd turn up the next day in a Ferrari or something. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. He'd get this really nice flashy car, but would have the police here in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Did you ever, like, when you were writing it, you know, like obviously the weekend with the big bag of cash? I assume that never happened, or if it did, don't tell us. But
You know. But no, you're right. It is about that question. Is that all my books really kind of have that element to them of what would I do and how would I react in this situation? How would I, which way would I go? What sort of path would I choose? And the next book, The Family, coming out next year, that's kind of has this element in it of, if you're almost certain that someone in your family did something really bad, and the police think he did it, and the media think he did it, and even his friends think he did it, would you kind of go along with that and accept the kind of all the evidence and stuff, or would you kind of put your blind faith in someone in your family and say, I'm actually going to ignore all of that, or ignore all the evidence, and kind of, because that also could get you into a real pile of trouble as well if you do that. So it's kind of, how would I react in any given situation, and how would I deal with something? And you're right, it's kind of, I don't have a lot of sort of like serial killers, and then they do occasionally pop up, but they're normally fairly sort of everyday situations with a kind of extra twist to them. So, but no, I've never found a bag of money, unfortunately. But I would say that, wouldn't I? Because who knows who's listening? So
exactly, and you've got that friend in accounting, so
absolutely, yeah. So that's a nice cabin I'm sitting in now. Maybe that was all paid for by it. Yeah. I did buy some. Hang on, I've got it down. So you can get this from Amazon. I use this for the unboxing. It's great. I got loads of them. They're great. They have to be 20% bigger than the real thing, I think. So you can't, but it is quite weird, kind of holding 50s, because I've never had a 50, I don't think. And then but you can buy them on them. They have to have a fake like other side, so they're not real. They're not real, but it's if you look at them quickly, it does look like
that's quite scary.
But I just use it for the unboxing and stuff like that. So, and for an event we had, but that's the closest I've got to a big stack of cash, and it's not real. Not real. If anybody's watching from HMRC,
totally not real. We'll pass by it.
Yeah.
Was there any characters in your book that were like the most interesting to write, or that you kind of related to?
I mean, quite often it's the sort of the I don't know, not the fun ones, the sort of the ones who don't really play by the rules. They're more fun to write than the ones who don't follow the law. So in The Weekend Cat's quite fun to write, because she kind of just really does her own thing. And in other books, it's often been the antagonists who are, because you don't really you going inside their head for a few hours or a few pages is just quite interesting to see what it'll be like if you literally lived life without following any kind of the rules or laws or stuff. So that I mean, it's nice to step away from it as well, but it's nice to spend a little bit of time in their heads. But yeah, so it tends to be, I don't know why, but I think they tend to be the most entertaining. So I think maybe we all think about from time to time. We all think about what it'll be like to to just ignore the sort of rules and regulations and proper ways of living, and kind of do our own thing, and sort of, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it's quite an attractive idea, maybe only for a short period of time. But so those characters tend to be, they're quite fun to write.
I can imagine. Is there like any characters that you really like or you really disliked when you were writing them?
In this book, or in I don't know, it's difficult to, I don't want to give away any spoilers on either of the books really, but I mean, probably one of the worst characters I've written is Alan Lovelock from 29 Seconds. He's I don't know if that's one you've read, but he's completely kind of obnoxious, entitled, professor in this university. But what was the question? Sorry, who I liked writing, or who have I?
Yeah, who have you liked? you know, who was your favorite character? Who was your least favorite?
Big favorite. I mean, I suppose that most of the protagonists are favorite. I really like the main character in Ellen Devlin in Trust Me. I really liked her because she's really kind of smart and resourceful and quite tough. And also liked the main character in The Mother. She was also again off that kind of in that kind of mold. So they're quite a character like that who was actually really good at quite a lot of things and quite smart and tough. They're quite fun to write because you kind of think about they're lots smarter and tougher than I am or I would be. But so they're probably among my favorites to think about, and because they go through a lot and they kind of come out at the end with a sort of in a better place. So yeah, they're nice people.
Yeah, the daughter is like fresh in my mind, so I just remember shutting the book and just going, I hate Scott. Scott. Oh, so
Yeah. He was a bit of a one, wasn't he?
yeah. Again, I won't spoil it for anyone, but yeah, Scott sucks.
He does.
So obviously you mentioned earlier that like a few of your books have got changed, adapted into TV shows. How did it feel like seeing your books go from obviously something that you've wrote to obviously in production?
It was very strange, very surreal. I mean, I've been told before it was even published. I've been told by a friend who was already published. She said loads of books get optioned for TV and hardly any of them actually end up getting made. So you get the option fee, which is a small amount of money as a kind of holding fee, a retainer, so they can work on this for a year and a half. And so when the holiday was actually approved to be made, when it had the green light, I was kind of it was shock more than anything else. It was surprise more than anything else because I just assumed that, like the first two books, it will be optioned and then nothing would happen. But when it did actually happen, it was a real. I mean, it was a brilliant, very pleasant surprise. But it was also, I think, a bit different from the norm because that happened during lockdown. So it was released. The book came out in summer 2019, and it had the green light for the TV show the end of 2020. So that was, even though that was a year and a half, believe it or not, in sort of TV terms, that's quite quick. So it's quite fast because some of these things can go on for years and years and years and years in production. So and then it was filmed in 2021 in Malta during lockdown with all the pandemic restrictions. So I didn't get to go to the set or meet any of the cast or any of that stuff because they said you can go out there, but you have to quarantine for 14 days. So I didn't. So it was a really, I think it wasn't a typical experience of book being made, one of your books being made, but it was. I mean, it was amazing when I first saw the trailer for. I think I was watching something else, and I just, it came up in the ad break. It was a trailer, and it was like the car coming up this road and the family in it, and I was like, I wrote that. I thought of that when I was washing up, and I wrote it, and it was, so. Yeah, it was a brilliant sort of experience. And then the catch was different again because it was the following year, and so some of the lockdown stuff was lifted, and so we could go to the set, and it was in Dublin, in and around Dublin, and we went to the set for a day, and yeah, and it was met Jason Watkins and some of the other cast and saw them filming, and yeah, it was, and I even had a little cameo role in one of the scenes, but it got cut.
Oh,
So it got and we were very excited. I was watching that episode and we watched it and then rewound it about 4 times, saying that was where you should have been, and but they just chopped it out. So that was my chance.
well, you wrote the book, so at least you're in there somewhere. You're in the credits.
Yeah, I think I was like story consultant or something like that, or whatever. I don't know, whatever wording they use, but which means you look at the scripts and you feedback on the scripts and you're kind of there, but you're not really involved in it. It's really down to the team, the director, producer, screenwriter. Sort of, they're the ones who are kind of actually calling the shots. So you're sort of a bit of a passenger really when it's happening. So but yeah, it was amazing, and I really, 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 really hope that there'll be another one. There's a few that may or may not happen, and it'll be great if there was a third one for sure.
If you could choose, like, what book would you want to get changed into like a movie or a TV show?
I think it would be. I mean, I think the daughter would be. The daughter is one of the ones that's sort of in the mix at the moment. Or the mother. I really like the story of the mother, and I think it's just one of those books you can kind of explain in one sentence. I think that's all of mine are that to a certain extent, but um, I would love either of them to be made. And then the curfew has been kind of bubbling under for a long time in this sort of world of TV and scripts and stuff. So that also would be great. 29 seconds actually kind of had, even though it came out in 2018, that was optioned way back, and then it was that expired, and then it's been optioned again more recently, and that's so yeah, I think that would be a good one to see on the screen. But yeah, but weirdly, The Weekend is the only one so far that hasn't been optioned. So it hasn't been optioned for TV or not yet anyway. So I don't know, but there are other ones. I think there's three or four others that are kind of maybes. So I got my fingers crossed.
That's so exciting. Do you
Yeah.
have like when you're writing, do you picture like specific like actors or like actresses and what your characters could look like or
Not really. I'm really bad at like remembering actors' names, to be honest. And I know that there's a few that I'm quite familiar with because I know that obviously Richard Armitage has done a couple of the audiobooks, and I've met him a few times. He's very nice. He's obviously very, very busy guy. He's done loads of the Harlan Coben TV shows. But I don't really picture. I don't think I really picture them when I'm writing. I also don't tend to give tons of description of the main characters because I think it's really. I might give one or two things, and then it's really I think in the eye of the reader to sort of to fill those blanks in rather than me going into great detail about what someone looks like. So and yeah, I don't really kind of think too hard about it. I mean, quite often will tend to be who's done the audiobooks. I think Nicola Walker has done the audiobook of The Weekend. I think she'd be really good, to be honest, in that role on TV because she's the right age. She's, she's got all the kind of, she's got a brilliant acting kind of resume, and yeah, she'd be very good. But again, I imagine she's incredibly busy, so probably quite a hard person because I think they can record an audiobook. The professionals probably in like I don't know 3 days, 4 days maybe. So it's quite a quick hit. Whereas a TV series will take ages. And The Holiday was 4 episodes of an hour long each, and that shoot took 7 weeks overseas. 7 weeks to provide 4 hours of telly, and that was a fast shoot. That was a fast turnaround. So a lot of shows will take a lot longer than that to film. So yeah, getting these actors for those big chunks of time, I think is probably quite hard.
I haven't got round to watching the TV shows yet because I like to read the books before watching the shows because obviously they're so different. And I feel like I was cheating on the books if I watched like the show first. But I'm very excited to watch them. It's the only way I can technically get my boyfriend to read a book, even though it's watching a show. It's the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Does he do audiobooks?
I'm getting there really slowly. He's the way it's kind of working is if we watch a movie and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a book, he'll listen to the audiobook.
Okay.
So we've recently watched, I can't remember what was the name of it, Fool Me Once by Harlan Coben.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm just gonna chuck one of yours into the mix and be like, you could listen to one of his books. So we'll get there eventually.
Yeah. You'll have him reading hardbacks before you know it.
Exactly. That's my thoughts because I'll get more book space. So
Yeah, definitely.
but yeah, if there's anything, I'll jump to Discord questions in a little second, and obviously some people have put some questions in the chat here. But if anyone was new to your work, which book would you recommend that they start with?
I don't know. I mean, I Oh, I don't know actually, because they're all standalone, so you can kind of do them in any order. They don't really connect. There's only one. There's one really brief mention of um in the daughter. There's a really brief mention of something from book two, but it's only because they're at the same university. It doesn't really. It doesn't. It's not really. It's only kind of in passing. So I'd probably say. I mean, the daughter's probably quite a good place to start, or the Dream Home. The Dream Home was a for me was quite a popular book because I think everybody has had that moving house experience, and that's how a book starts. It starts on moving day when they're kind of in the house and everything's chaos and there's a million boxes and you can't find the kettle and all that stuff. And so that's quite a sort of to get you put you right in there on the first page. That's quite a good one. So probably the Dream Home or the Daughter. If you're going on holiday, probably take the holiday, maybe. Or if your daughter's just brought home a new boyfriend, you could get the Catch and and see how that goes.
Maybe don't read it if you're going on holiday or if you're
Yeah,
picking your daughter up from uni. Don't read the daughter.
maybe read them afterwards. Yeah,
Yeah, that way, whatever's happened, it's not as bad as that.
yeah. So it's relatively speaking, it can't be. It's much better than that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Right, I'll jump on to your questions just now. So Sam has asked, in The Holiday, every adult in the villa has a massive destructive secret. Which character's secret was the most challenging or fun to write?
Um, I mean, to be honest, I wrote that in 2018, so it's quite a long time ago. I think they're all. It's less so the sort of um the challenge of the individual ones is kind of making them all mesh together and making them all a little bit different and making them kind of complementary almost. So that was the challenge with it. And obviously you got the kind of the main secret underlying the whole thing. So you want to have the reader kind of jumping to conclusions and then them not being the right conclusion sort of thing. So it's a bit of a tightrope to walk, between giving them a certain amount of information, but not enough to sort of give away the main plot point. So I'm trying to think so they had I think it was not Ross, was it? I can't remember his name, but it was one of the dads was quite fun because he was just got drunk the whole time and he just sat by the pool and got drunk the whole time. So that was quite and he had quite a sort of acerbic sense of humor. So he was quite funny. But so, I mean, secrets are always a challenge because you want to be recognizable, but you don't want to be too off the wall. Same with The Weekend, really. You want to be sort of things that you might recognize from someone you've talked to or someone or someone you've met down the pub. There's got to be kind of a relatable secret rather than being something too crazy. So, but yeah, secrets are in all the books really. So it's they're nice to have.
Yeah, definitely. I'm also very bad for remembering names. Like I'll remember the character, but I'll forget the name like as soon as the book's done. So
Yeah.
how do you feel your book The Holiday was represented by the TV series?
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, I think it was different. It was, it was actually more faithful to the book than the Catch was. The TV version of the Catch. It was. I mean, they did make some changes. They took a character out. They took one of the teenage boys out. I liked it. And obviously it was a massive thrill for me to see it on the screen. But I had the advantage of having read all the scripts, so I knew what was coming. I knew how it was going to play out. And I think some people, when they having read the book, then they saw it on the screen, they were like, well, hang on, this was, where's that character? And why is this it's not in the south of France, it's somewhere else, and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, no, I think I felt like I had to sort of step back a bit from it and let go of it a bit because the book is mine. The book is my sort of baby, and the book's on the shelf behind me, and that's always going to be mine, my thing. And I think the TV show is almost like a sort of an interpretation of that. It's kind of like a version of it, but it's not the actual. They could have literally done it scene by scene from everything in the book, but that isn't really. There are certain things that will work on the page that don't work on screen, and vice versa. So, yeah, I liked it, and I have met, to be honest, I have met lots and lots of people at events since then who have said they preferred the book to the TV show. But that's in some ways I don't mind that, because that's sort of a compliment, I suppose, if they prefer the book. But I think there aren't many things on screen that you think, I read the book and I saw it on screen and I preferred the screen version. I think that's not, it's maybe quite a small category of things. I'm trying to think of one now, but I mean, maybe something like the Shawshank Redemption, which was like a short story, I think, when it was actually written, and obviously the screen version was much longer. But I think for the most part, people prefer seeing it in their own heads rather than seeing it on the screen. But that's for book lovers like all of us and book readers. I think that's probably the way it should be.
Yeah, I think book readers are probably the hardest people to please because we have ideas of how people look. You know, if you choose the wrong actor, actress, like we're so hard to please. You'll never get it right.
Yeah.
But no, definitely, it's an interpretation. I try not to compare the two things because they are so different. There's so many things that won't translate onto the screen as well as it does on a page.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Alice has asked, are you looking forward to any of your books being turned into TV shows?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I say, I think there's maybe 4 at the moment that are either have got scripts written or treatments written, or so yeah, I'd be delighted if another one made it to the screen, because it is such a, it's like you were saying about your other half. It's kind of, there are lots of people out there who will probably, like my brother's boys, my nephews are like, they're not going to read the books, but they will watch the TV show. So there's kind of, that's the one way they can access what what I'm doing here. So it's kind of, it's a way in for them, and it's, yeah. So I'd be delighted if any of them got to the screen, to be honest. But yeah, I reckon the mother or the daughter or the curfew, I think, are probably in the front running at the moment for that. So, but I mean, there's nothing concrete yet, but I'm just kind of fingers crossed.
Yeah, like nothing's in production, but we're all just going to sit here like.
Yes.
Someone has asked, when writing, do you have any routines that you follow before starting?
It tends to be what I don't do rather than what I do. So it tends to be, if I'm really trying to, like tomorrow, I've really got to crack on. I've been writing today, so I'm writing a novella at the moment, which is only 20,000 words, but it's got to be done for the end of the month. And I'm in Harrogate next weekend, and then I'm at this wedding the following weekend. So I've not got loads of days. So when I know I've got to really focus and get on with the writing, it's about what I don't do, and that tends to be anything that's going to be a distraction, like email, social media, any of that stuff. I know that I've got to come downstairs, have some breakfast, come into the cabin, and start straight away. That is the number one thing, I think. And for years, I sort of struggled with this, trying to messing about and doing other stuff and saying, "Oh, I'll just get around to it in a bit," and then before you know it, it's midday and you've not written any words. So for me, the big part of my routine in the morning is to get into it straight away at 8 o'clock or soon after, and then if I can have like 4 or 5 good hours in the morning, then I'll normally feel quite good about the rest of the day, sort of thing. So the routine is, yeah, it's do as little as possible that is going to distract me before I start writing, basically. So and then get in here. I'll sit for maybe 5 or 10 minutes with the headphones on, just thinking myself into the book and thinking myself into the story, where I am, what I'm doing next, and maybe make a few notes about what's happening in this chapter, where I'm going to come out of the chapter, and then I'll start. And so yeah, procrastination, I think, is the enemy of the enemy of sort of every useful pursuit, isn't it? I think so. Yeah, it's about cracking on. And I've always had this little note on my corkboard up there on my left, which just says, "Just get on with it. Just get on with it." And every so often I just look up at that and think, yeah, that's what I should be doing. So that applies to sort of probably most jobs or every job. So yeah, get on with it. That's what I try to do in the morning.
I need to get that for my desk. I really do.
Yeah.
Have any of your stories derailed from the original plan?
Yeah, I mean, most of them have changed in that first big when the first readers read it, which is my editor, my agent, my wife, there's always some quite big changes that happened then. And there was certainly big changes with the weekend. There was big changes with the curfew and with the mother. The whole reason in the mother for why the crime happens, all the resolution, that was all changed from version 1 to version 2. So yeah, the stuff maybe not derail, but it's kind of, jumps onto a different rail and it goes in a slightly different direction, sort of thing. So yeah, it does happen. I've never had a book. I see every so often on social media about authors who have kind of written a book or written half a book and then kind of thrown it away because it's not working. I've never done that, or I've never done it yet, touch wood. But it does, maybe it'll happen sooner or later to me, but hasn't happened to me yet. But it is a thing that sometimes, you kind of just get, I think maybe you get to a point where it's just not working, or it's not working in the way you want it to, and you kind of have to let it go. But yeah, it's never happened quite that way yet to me. So maybe the next one will be one that gets derailed.
You'll let us know. Hopefully not.
If there's a year break between the book 11 and book 12, then that'll be why.
Someone has also asked, who are your favorite authors to read?
I really like, who do I like? Louise Candlish was really good. I've never read a bad one of hers. I really like Michael Connolly. I've probably got more Michael Connolly on my shelves than anyone else. So he's the Harry Bosch author, and the Lincoln Lawyer, and all those guys. So I'm trying to have a look up here. Harlan Coben is probably a big one for me. I don't know. Oh, S.A. Cosby, he's really good. Lucy Clark, she's very good. Who else? Stephen King. I mean, there's always a good Stephen King, and I used to read him a lot when I was a teenager, and then I've kind of got back into him in the last 10 years, but because he's kind of gone back into this, having all these crime books and Finders Keepers and all that, which is, and obviously he's the godfather, isn't he, of fiction. And he kind of because he does so many, he kind of straddles so many different genres. So he's brilliant. And Misery is one of my favorite thrillers. So from, I don't know when I first read that, when it first came out, probably I was 30-ish years ago. And so Misery is probably one of those books I also would wish I'd written myself as well, because I don't tend to like many books that are written about writers. I don't know why, but that is one of the exceptions to that rule, from my rule, because I think it's such a, there's basically two characters in it the whole time, and it's just so brilliant, so tense, and so but I'm glad they toned it down slightly for the film version when what she does to his feet. We won't mention that. Let's not go there. Let's not go there.
See, I actually broke my rule for that one. I watched the movie before I have read the book.
Okay.
So we're actually reading Misery for our horror book club at chapter 25, which I also host. So I'm very excited. I think that's our October book. So I'll let you know what I think.
I think the movie's really good as well. The movie was, I thought that was, James Caan, and I think she got the Oscar for that, did she? Or Kathy
Bates.
Kathy Bates, yeah. She, So I thought it was a really good film version as well. So well, I'll be interested to hear what you see what you think.
I'm so excited to read it. Just an excuse to buy more books. Without giving too much away, what can you tease about the premise or setting of the book you're working on right now?
Well, that is the one I mentioned a bit earlier. So that's the Family, coming out in March next year, and it's about a blended family. So there's kind of two families come together after both parents are widowed, sort of early in life, and so there's 4 children in total, and the 2 parents, and then it's really all about this one night where this terrible thing happens in the house, and this sort of scene of this crime is kind of discovered by Joel, who's 17. He's the middle child in this family, and his father's gone, and his stepmother's injured, his brother's injured, and blood everywhere and all the DNA and all the stuff. The police very quickly established that his dad has done this for whatever reason, and they set out on this kind of manhunt to find him and bring him in and charge him. And Joel is the only one who refuses to believe that his dad is capable of doing this thing. And in the teeth of all the evidence and all of his friends telling him, that you got to listen to the police, family, the public, the media, they're all kind of, baying for his dad's blood for various reasons, which can't become clear. And Joel is the only one who kind of refuses to believe it. And he sets out on this kind of quest to find out who is setting his dad up, or what has happened, what's kind of come back from the past to try and destroy him. So yeah, it's coming out. It's coming out in March 11th next year, and it's called The Family. And it doesn't have a cover yet. It's just got a kind of holding cover, but it's I think they might be giving away samples. There's a sample at the back of the first chapter is at the back of the paperback of the Weekend, which is out today actually. So
Great title.
So in the back of that, somewhere here, is the first chapter of The Family. So if you want to get a taster, you can see what it's all about there.
I already own it on Kindle and audiobook, but I need to go buy the paperback now. So, it's just the rule. You've said that there's a chapter and I have to go buy it.
I think you should, if you can afford it. My son's just arrived back. Are you going to come in on this chat here? Are you going to come say hello?
What are you doing?
I'm chatting to the book club here. This is Tom, my son, who's just come back from London.
Hi.
Hello, book club.
I'll let you crack on.
Okay.
That's so sweet.
Okay, he got picked up by his sister from the station, so he's back. We got a festival, music festival in Nottingham this weekend called Splendor, and he's come back for that. So yeah, and to see us as well. But he's mostly come back for the festival, to be honest.
That's exciting. Are you going as well, or is it just?
I've got an event on Saturday in Mansfield, unfortunately, so I don't think I'll be able to make it. But I always say every year I'll go. I never managed it, but I'll maybe on Sunday. I'm not sure, but I think I'm probably gonna have to write on Sunday. So maybe next time.
Maybe. We've got one more. What was the first book you ever read that left you wanting to read more books?
The one, I don't know. I read loads of like Roald Dahl and stuff when I was a kid, and Famous Five and all those things. But I think the one, and I actually still got this box set upstairs on another bookcase, is the Narnia books, C.S. Lewis. So I had a real kind of old school, box set of, I think it's 7, isn't it, of the books, including, Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. And I think it's probably because we've moved house quite a lot of times since then. And kind of every time you move house, you think, well, I don't need that, or you give these books away, and then you kind of regret it. But that is that's one of the few kids' books that's kind of stayed through all those moves, and I've still got it now. So I think that's probably one of the ones that's really kind of inspired me. And so I say the Narnia, all of the Narnia books all together.
Narnia is brilliant. Another one where I wouldn't say the movie is better, but the movie is very good.
Yeah, we still watch that at Christmas sometimes. So the first one. So yeah, it was quite well done.
I also lied. We have one more question. My mum has just texted me because she is watching us, and she'd like to know if you'd ever be open to writing a different genre of book.
I'd quite like to do. I don't know. I'd quite fancy doing something with a sort of historical, like recent history sort of angle. Because my degree was in history, I wanted to do English, but my grades were, rubbish, so I didn't get into doing English. But history, there's something about. So I grew up in the 80s, pretty much 70s and 80s, and there's something about the 80s that I think is quite fascinating, because it is quite a long time ago now, but it's actually really not, and it's obviously in my kind of lifetime experience, but the world then is really quite different, significantly different to how it is now, even though it might appear on the surface to be quite similar. So I'm quite intrigued by the idea of writing a book set in the 80s. And I've just, I'm getting a proof, I think, sent by us from someone of a book set in 83. And there's another one which came out this year, which is called The Barbecue at Number 9, which I haven't read yet, but it sounds like a great premise. And it's by the lady who wrote The List of Suspicious Things.
I love that book so much.
Yeah. And I just read that. I had the blurb, and the blurb is like, this is a sort of it's a barbecue, happens on Live Aid Day in 1985, whatever it was. And it's all in this one sort of close in this one house, and the kind of murder mystery and stuff. And I just thought, what a brilliant idea, because you can have all the music, you can kind of have all the cultural references and sort of stuff. And so that will probably be what I'll be most intrigued by. Do something like that, pre-mobile phones, pre-CCTV, pre-DNA ay, and they'll be quite a fun thing to do. Although I don't know how my characters would talk to each other. I'd have to be constantly going to like pay phones or whatever, or I don't know, or going back to the house to ring people, or I don't really know how I'd handle it. I think probably gets about page 3 and I'd be like, oh God, what have I done? This is a really terrible idea. But yeah. Because my kids are like, how did you talk to each other back when you were growing up? And I'm like, well, we just met and we just talked, or we just, you came into someone's house and you talked to them. But yeah, so I'm intrigued by that. Whether it'll happen or not, I don't know. But I'm quite interested in that idea. So we'll see.
Yeah, because technology and social media is used quite a lot, not just in your books, but in thrillers in general. So I'd be very intrigued about how that would work.
Yeah.
If you set it, back when it wasn't kind of common, that would be a really interesting premise.
Yeah. Because I use it a lot, and I think I use it more than I realize. And you kind of, it's not until if you actually looked at all the times, even on TV shows, even if you took out all the times when suddenly someone gets a phone call, and it would have a real different flavor to it. I think a real different shape to it, the story. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know yet, but we'll see.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for spending this evening with us. I can safely say I've had an amazing time. Thank you so much.
You were invited. It's been good. It's been nice.
It's honestly best night of this week, or probably
better than last night. Anyway, better than last night for sure. Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't going to bring that up because I'm Scottish.
Yeah. Okay. So I went there, didn't I? I went there. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Man, everyone at chapter 25 other than me is English, so
okay.
I'm sorry for you guys. I'm sorry.
Were you wearing your Messi shirt last night then?
No, my Scotland one.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
Well, thank you so much, everyone that has joined us. I hope I've got through all your questions. I think I have. But again, thank you so much for joining us on a Thursday night, and we'll see you at the next Q&A.
Thank you for inviting me as well. And thanks to everybody. I can't see anybody, but thank you anyway.
Thank you so much.